Alrighty, Crimson Desert. This is actually one of the games that I'm most anticipating next year. As mentioned in my latest upload, I made a list of the 2026 releases I'm most looking forward to, and this is really up there. It's the next major title from Pearl Abyss. This is the development studio behind the popular yet divisive MMORPG Black Desert Online, which I would consider like a genuinely good MMO in a lot of ways. It's got really satisfying combat, a pretty unique world, and tons of interesting features, systems, and mechanics. Honestly, its only real big downside for me is the gearing system, character power progression, and how a lot of that ties directly into monetization. Like, it's got one of those upgrade systems where the higher level your gear gets, the greater its % chance to fail to upgrade, and you can either grind for ages to get the resources needed to try again, or essentially swipe your credit card to brute force past it. It's also one of those games where the highest tier of gear makes you like exponentially better than those just below it, letting you decimate a lot of the game's content, which at times does include other players. But look, like that stuff aside, it's actually really a solid MMO. Like, I genuinely quite have enjoyed my time playing the game, sinking in a few hundred hours over the years. The point of all of this being, Pearl Abyss has proven that they can make a good fantasy action combat game, and it seems like Crimson Desert is going to be just that, without all of the pay-to-win MMO elements souring the experience. That's at least the impression that I have gotten from everything we've seen and heard thus far. Now, I think some of the early gameplay showcases were a bit shaky, the ones from a few years ago. Yeah, let me show you. The performance is really bad. Even this is like a highlight showcase dev blog video where they're trying to show off the best of the game, and it's running at like 15 frames a second at times. I mean, it was really, really bad. But that said, that was 5 years ago. That's practically a lifetime in game development. And what we have seen recently looks a heck of a lot better. Especially the past couple of months, we've gotten a bunch of gameplay trailers, a lot of stuff that came out of hands-on impressions and preview demo time from Gamescom, and it's looking good, like really good. In fact, the more that I've seen, the more impressed I've become, and frankly, I'm at the point where, yeah, like I said, this is one of my more anticipated games of next year. So there's a lot of really good and interesting stuff that came out of some of these trailers. I want to dive in and take a look at it and talk about some of it. All right, so first we got this 11 minutes of gameplay from IGN. It opens up with a bit of dialogue and stuff, a lot of this like RPG stuff. You know, honestly, when it comes to open world RPGs, sure, like I want there to be a narrative and interesting stuff that's going on, but I'm more about experiencing the world building and narrative building through exploration, adventuring, and all that stuff. I've never really, over the years, like I've never been one for listening and sitting here for all the cutscenes. It's like not really doing it for me. So the gameplay stuff is what I'm really interested in. Now, straight away, when they open up into this gameplay section, one of the first things I actually noticed is like a really nice saturation and color palette. Although I will point out, you got a lot of this foggy stuff that does not look good on a YouTube video. With the bitrate and the YouTube compression and stuff, when it comes to a lot of these effects, these fog effects or even particle effects, it can look especially bad, blurry, and muddy is the word a lot of people use when it comes to how the stuff looks in YouTube. But we realize a lot of that is down to like the YouTube compression, the processing when they render out the videos and stuff like that, the bitrate settings, all of that makes this stuff look worse than it tends to actually look in person when the game's running natively on your screen. But here we get into the gameplay. This section here is what sold me. Like, you got him running up, doing these clotheslines, tossing the person. There's all sorts of, it's like a lot of different move sets that they're doing. It's got a spin attack there. Placing down the pole arm and lunging forward looks really, really cool. Sticking the guy on a spike and slamming him to the ground. Now, as we're going to continue to look at this gameplay, probably the biggest thing that stands out, not so much early on here, but it's like a heavy use of particle effects. It's not so bad here, but it's going to get like progressively worse as we get through it. But other than that, like other than having a lot of particle effects for many of these special attacks and whatnot, the action gameplay combat here, I think looks genuinely really good. And you know what it reminds me a bit of? Obviously, you can draw parallels to Black Desert Online, right? Because that's this development studio's prior major title. But also, something about the combat reminds me of like the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games, how they're juggling characters and bouncing between and doing these different movesets and having these grapples. Also harkens back to like the Batman Arkham games, which is sort of like the genesis for kind of that style of combat where you're bouncing between characters and managing them and blocking incoming attacks and countering. But all of this, it's not just action combat with you like swinging a sword, blocking, dodging, and parrying. They have a lot of physicality with the characters grabbing each other, even enemy characters grabbing your character and tossing you around. It's really, really cool looking. Now here we've got some elemental effects. His sword turns into, this was my favorite part, dude. His sword turns into a lightsaber, question mark? It's just like an element, it's an ice enchantment effect or whatever, right? But it's just funny, like it looks like a lightsaber for portions of this video. But really, like once they get into doing these elemental attacks, this is where a lot of the particle effects, heavy particle effect usage. Now I absolutely love this section when they start showcasing the traversal. So the game's got a grapple hook where it appears, from what I've seen from all the gameplay, you can literally grapple anywhere in the environment. And then that grapple is followed up by this gliding system. So first he does this spin, and then he pulls out these wings. They're kind of like ghostly looking. There's like even a digitized element to them, or a lot of particle effects to them, but traversal looks absolutely fantastic. It seems like he could just freely go anywhere between the grapple, the double jump, and the ability to glide. They've got these elements, this one in particular for a quest, but able to destroy fortresses with these pre-established cannons that are in the environment. And it's just nice, like these things that add additional layers to the gameplay, I think are really nice. And it seems like this game has a lot of that. So this is, when I first saw this, I wasn't actually sure what it was, but I actually believe it's like a distraction technique. They do it a few times in the gameplay showcase. I believe the player's using it to like draw attention and distract enemies. So I think he's like putting up a flare, distracting, there's an enemy right up there in the watchtower, and then is gonna sneak around them from that distraction point. You know, sort of similar to like throwing a noisemaker, for example, tossing a rock that kind of grabs the attention of enemy NPCs. Because this game does appear to have a stealth system in it. There's different levels of alertness to enemies. Red when they're on full alert, this like yellow-orange when they're kind of thinking something's in the area but not sure where, and then white when they're just completely oblivious. This game looks to have that, and we've seen some indication that there is stealth mechanics. Yeah, I mean, everything about the combat looks good. Even this ranged attack, between the animations and the sounds, it looks like it's gonna feel good to play, is what I mean to say. It genuinely looks like it's got satisfying feeling combat, so I'm really, really hopeful about that. And here we can see he does the, what I'm assuming is a distraction technique. It's either that or it's pointing to an objective. I'm not 100% sure. Love this traversal here. Really, really great looking stuff. And this traversal has him transitioning seamlessly into combat. This is the greatest, right? Floats up in the air, bam, slams down, craters the enemies, launches them off into oblivion. Like, that's so cool. And this is clearly one of those major points of interest where the player will go in and have to clear out enemies. You can see the enemy alertness on the mini-map when they're aware that you're there, when they're on high alert, and when they're actively aggressive and engaged in combat. I mean, there's a lot of games that present it like this, but it actually really reminds me of how they do it in the Far Cry system with their use of coloring and vision cones. There a lot of games, a lot of like kind of open worldy games that do stuff like this. So it looks like we got a big open world, lots of different points of interest. Seems like we're gonna have multiple entries into a lot of those. We got him sneaking in a castle through this little side hole in the wall, and then from there going in and doing a bit of exploration inside. And something about the visuals here is like, it doesn't look the best. But it doesn't look bad either. I will say kind of like the coloring and the lighting in here, I don't know, particularly things like the shadows stand out to me. Like you can see how kind of pixelated and blocky the shadows are flickering off that torch there. And the fidelity of everything, like the fidelity of the characters and the assets in the environment. It doesn't look bad. It kind of reminds me of like Dragon's Dogma in terms of the visual appearance. I mean, what it most reminds me of course, is Black Desert Online. And it's worth noting, this game is being built in the exact same engine that BDO is built in as well. I really like this here. The game seems to have a lantern mechanic for scouting the environment. So, you know, in a lot of games, they'll have like a pulse mechanic where you can look all around you and it's going to highlight interactables, objects you can pick up, doors you can open, chests you can open. In this game, it looks like they're literally using this lantern that you physically hold up, and within the cone of the lantern, you have to scan around. It's nice. It's a nice little touch and a nice divergence from, once more, what is the typical just scan all around you and mark everything for a few seconds. It also looks like it will highlight your quest objective, giving you a path, so you can see the path going up the stairs there for where his objective to defeat Fortain, the Cursed Knight. Yeah, no, I don't want to imply that I think the graphics look bad, but they don't look like super cutting edge. And if that's the sacrifice they're making for getting the game to run better, sign me up 110% of the time. That's the other thing worth noting, like this game looks to be running pretty smoothly compared to the showcases that they were showing the whopping 5 years ago. So here's the boss fight, and there's a lot of things I really like about this. It's a big tanky boss, and he's got this kind of supporting spirit for a lot of his attacks. So you're gonna watch the boss slam and strike out, and then following up him is this kind of larger spirit version of him. This part's really cool. We've got this bullet time effect, like Max Payne style. You can see the markings of the arrows being shot. Like you're gonna see where they land, and you can really, really great. I love that. I love the little bullet time, slow down time effect. One of the pros of having a single player game versus an online MMO style game, right? But yeah, all of these special spectral attacks that the boss is using, I think it's just really nice. And in general, the boss fights that I've seen here in this game have been really genuinely interesting looking. Like they look the right amount of difficult. They don't look too stupid hard, but they also don't look face roll easy. The player who's controlling this clearly has played the game a bit. Like you can see by the way they're attacking and acting and interacting with stuff that they're at least somewhat familiar with the game. Even they, like, it's still a struggle. Like, yeah, just the fights look good, and this is a great example of it. Now, going back to like the YouTube video compression, the quality of this is kind of junky. A lot of that has to do with bitrate. I don't know what it is too, by the way. Like IGN, their videos always kind of look like crap, especially for higher fidelity games or games with a, I don't know what it is about how their bitrate settings, how they do their encoding, how many passes they're doing. I really don't know, but they've never had really high fidelity quality gameplay. Maybe it's to keep the file sizes down. They lower a lot of the settings, but yeah, this is no doubt, like, look at it, just looks like a gray mess right here. But but a lot of that, like I mentioned before, like with the fog effects, a lot of it has to do with the rendering and the video processing and all the videos go through. Great looking fight though. A lot of really cool animations and different attacks from the boss. You can also see he's got all these supporting knights around him, occasionally shooting fire arrows and stuff. And even just the gimmick, once more, even just the gimmick of the spectral version of the boss. I like it. It's good. It really is. This looks good and interesting and fun. Fight goes on for a few minutes. It's at the end where there's a few things that I think are really, really cool. So first, cinematically, when you fight the boss, its spirit is like disappointed in it or something. So he's like, all right, I'll finish you off. Just get you out of here. But then probably the thing that got me most hyped watching this is that after you defeat the boss, it's kind of funny. All the supporting enemies are like, all right, he killed our captain. We're out of here. After you defeat the boss, you take his items. Okay. But it's not just like, hey, you've got a new cosmetic sword and shield that look a little different. You get, check this out. You get his freaking spirit attack. If they do that, if that is like a universal truth for like the gear that you get from bosses, that you get to take some of their abilities and mechanics on your character, I love that, dude. I love that. That is so cool. I want to see it again. That is so cool that you get this boss summon. It looks like it's the end of a combo chain. Does a few strikes, final strike, boom, spectral boss spear comes down. That is sick as hell. Another really interesting thing at the end of this trailer is the game looks to have let's call it a POI capture system. Again, reminds me of something like Far Cry. A lot of games do it, but Far Cry is just what comes to mind for me. So they have these huge banners and you use some magic to pick it up, and then you place it down in here, and then you capture the area. And still don't know exactly what that's gonna do. Turn it over to your faction. Maybe it gets all the enemies out like Far Cry. Hard to know, but still pretty cool looking. All right, so that is the first gameplay trailer. There was another gameplay trailer as well. Now, from what I understand, this is the gameplay demo that a lot of people had hands on at Gamescom. You started out, you had one mission to complete, and you're exploring this one mission area. This is IGN's gameplay of it. Love the look of the open world. From what we've heard and seen, and from hands-on impressions, it is entirely fully 100% open. Oh, I think I mentioned this earlier, but if not, there's something about this game's visuals where it's like they nudged up the saturation to slightly above normal. There's a brightness to the grass. There's like a neon element to the greenness of the grass that doesn't look natural, but it's not so overly saturated that I think it looks bad. I actually quite like how there's maybe they could tune it down a little bit. Like maybe it's slightly oversaturated, but generally I like the pop of color that they added with this over like a more genuine, natural looking color palette. So the beginning of the quest, first they're looking to siege this area, and the first thing that they have to do was shoot down these watchtowers. So again, we see the use of the cannon. Looks like we've got another point capture. I'd be really interested mechanically what this does. Like, okay, so you lift up the banner, you place it in the area, and then do your troops come in? Does it push out enemy troops? Does it give you a buff in the area? I'm assuming something along those lines is what will happen. Raise the banner. So it just says raise the banner, but didn't really describe. So big combat section. Gonna see some more of the action combat in effect. especially fighting against these small groups of enemies. And I just love so much about it. There's what I'm talking about with the physicality. Again, you can even see the enemy doing it. This enemy walks up to your character, grabs him by the shoulders, and throws him on the ground. And it looks like he rolled out of what would have been some sort of debuff or something. Now, this is also, this video in particular really highlights like the over-the-top use of particle effects that they went with. It's definitely a little obscene. It's just a lot. It's just very aggressive. Just the sheer quantity and how much of the screen it really clutters up. And it gets especially bad in areas where it's really just obstructing your vision as to what's going on, especially during some of the boss fights. Like even some of this, like look at there's so many particles when he's got his special elemental attacks or whatever it is that's triggering it. But aside from that, like I actually think the combat looks phenomenal. The action combat in this game, just looks really impressive. It looks really fun. Reminds me of the Batman games, reminds me of the Shadow of Mordor, but then, then also just like traditional action combat. Just seems like there's a lot of variety, like a lot of different moves and combos and things that you can do. This is really cool. He calls in an artillery strike. So at one point in this mission, players unlocked access. I think maybe when they placed down the banner, they did a prerequisite that gave them access to request a military strike, which all they had to do was shoot an arrow at the target and then it would rain down. And from what we've seen, you can do this anywhere within this mission. I don't know, like across the entire game, but you can just shoot and call a strike, and look, that freaking strike absolutely destroyed that facility, that structure there. But we see the player even do it against, see, just calls it down against enemies there, raining down arrows. Really, really nice. This is a fight against what appears to be an elite, so a little bit of a tougher enemy, but not a full-on boss. Like they don't have the full nameplate and health bar at the top of the screen, but clearly a tougher enemy. And I genuinely appreciate how it's not, I feel like a lot of these games, it's either, they can be really face roll, and it's pretty clear that like you have to juggle back and forth. You have to pay attention to avoiding damage and countering attacks, blocking, parrying, dodging, like doing all this stuff. It's really nice. I like it. I genuinely am excited to play the game, to experience its combat. So we got a bit more dialogue in here. The next big thing is another boss encounter. This goes on for quite a while, and this is probably where the particle effects looked like most egregious to me in terms of it just cluttering up. The good news is I have heard that you'll be able to turn down the particle effects of attacks. I don't know if you can turn them off completely, but you can at least turn them down so they're at least less severe. Some quick time events in here as well. But this fight also looks interesting. You've got a boss with a lot of mechanics, and apparently what I've heard from people who played through the demo is that this boss was super tanky. You could barely do any damage via attacks to them. And the whole idea was you had to wear them down. You can see they've got like that stun meter under the health bar. So you have to wear them down until they became exhausted or stunned or whatever. And then once they were stunned, they went in a down state. Just wait till you see what they do in the down state. The yellow bar's full, the boss is exhausted. These pillars have been knocked down throughout the course of the fight. And then our player lifts up the pillar. This is great, dude. It just freaking kabonks him right on the head. And you can see it took off like half of his health just from that one thing. So yeah, interesting, like unique mechanic to this fight. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. This fight has, you can't deal damage to the boss, you gotta hit him with a pillar. The other fight had that spectral thing, as well as all those supporting archers. Like, really, really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. I'm just like really excited. Like, I think this game is shaping up to be better and more than I expected. Got a couple more interesting things towards the end of this video as well. We got some more world traversal, just kind of showing the free roam capabilities. Again, it looks like you have a double jump or something of the sorts, and then you just have the ability to glide. As long as your stamina meter is being drained, you can keep on gliding. The game also has a free climbing, so you can scale up the rocks, the sides of mountains and stuff. Similarly, just restricted by the amount of stamina that you have. We see some resource nodes there. They do have harvesting and crafting, so you can go up there and use a pickaxe to pick at those, and you'll use those resources for making gear and stuff, presumably, right? And yeah, dude, it's just a full-on open world. Just go wherever. And I've heard that the game is quite gargantuan too, in terms of the play space, the amount of bunch of different biomes. You got kind of plains region, you got a mountainy region, you got a desert region, and then the player is just making their way to the top of the tower, lighting a beacon. And it is neat though, they do the whole thing where if you pull your arrow out towards a flame source, it's gonna light that arrow on fire, and then you can use it to light things on fire, like this little watchtower thing, which I don't know, maybe that reveals the map. This looks like the thing that reveals the map. Very Ubisoft Tower-y, right? We got a couple of interesting trailers over the past few months that showcase different elements and kind of features and mechanics within the game that I want to check out too. All right, first from 9 months ago, this was the release announcement trailer. Got this big open world. See that mountain? You can go there. It's one of those games. So we've been told. I mean, this looks nice. You know what I mean? Like, not cutting edge graphics, but it's pretty nice looking. I love that plant attack. These particle effects are ridiculous. If we can turn them down, whatever. It's not, you know, it's not the end of the world. There's the free climb. Able to just scale the sides of mountains as long as you have the stamina to do it. They have a lot of kind of other dimensional stuff as well. The cape kind of has that appearance to it. So you see them falling, and we're only seeing a fraction here. And, well, you can kind of see it on the outer edges here. The continent is huge. People have mentioned in the gameplay demo that it looks absolutely massive, and they're like, you can see the different biomes. You got the deserty biome there on the left hand side and kind of the plainsy grassy region on the right hand side. And there will be, I don't know how and when, but there will be times when you're falling in like Breath of the Wild styled or friggin' Battle Royale style even. There's some of the life skilling that they do. Black Desert Online does these systems very well, so hopefully they do it similarly well here. Looks like you've got cooking. Actually kind of reminds me of how they do the up close cooking like in Monster Hunter. And then there's the harvesting and gathering of those mineral deposits there that we saw earlier. I like how they actually have it like physically crack apart like that. Looks good. I'm pretty confident that they have like, I'm at least assuming that they have a stealth system because of how they do enemy awareness, and this just looks like a stealth takedown here. So it seems like they do have a stealth system. Some cool attacks. It's like this chain ability going from one to the other, tossing enemies. Look like you're calling down Meteor Storm or something. Like really, really a lot of cool effects. And yes, riding of dragons. We saw this in some earlier trailers, shooting fire down from dragons. I mean, yeah, dude, it looks good, dude. A lot of this stuff looks really, really, really good. All right, GDC behind the scenes. This one had some good stuff in it too. Okay. So this is, this trailer, I just wanted to show this one, some of this briefly. They're showcasing some of the visual differences where they're turning on effects to make things look better. So there's like the water looking more naturally runny and foamy, though I actually don't even, I don't know. It just looks like, okay, so there's a lot of stream or not, but you can tell there's actually a pretty nice looking difference here where you can see the waves and the foam as it breaks upon the rocks and everything. I genuinely think that looks really good. But yeah, just kind of a showcase comparison of graphic stuff, improvements that they've done with the engine. I was actually quite impressed by this. The volumetric fog, now as the character moves around, you can kind of see it following the breeze created by the character's movement and how it kind of disperses and then fills back in as fog would. That looks really, really good. They also have a time lapse here, so they're just basically showing that the game has a day-night cycle. I believe they're gonna have weather effects in there as well because I've seen different incremental weather systems in the game, but they go through just a whole day-night cycle. They actually go through it a few times here. But yeah, just a showcase of some different things. This looks pretty good too. The cloth simulation, how it just blows in the breeze. I mean, yeah, it looks nice. It looks nice. But some of the other trailers show, again, some more interesting different mechanics and features. There was some really cool stuff in this one. So we got some of the combat with chaining attacks. There's a call down of an artillery strike, I believe. Yeah, there it is. This was probably one of the coolest things. You've got this like tank thing that shoots out fireballs in all directions, and then the player jumps up over it and like Goomba stomps Mario style on top of it, destroying it in the process. I mean, that's cool. That's just like a cool enemy type. That's a cool way of dealing with them. I think it's really interesting. All right, and one more trailer. This one's kind of jam-packed. It's the release date reveal trailer. Lots of quickly flying by, but some interesting stuff. You can see in this combat section a lot of the more like martial arts inspired abilities with kicks and punches and grapples and shoulder charges and throws. Like, look at that spinning roundhouse kick, like a punch to the chest. Like, that stuff looks great. Now, these are cinematic cuts, but nevertheless, some more of the dragon combat. They have apparently a bunch of different mounts because that is clearly a player riding. This mech thing kind of reminds me, do you guys remember the game Biomutant? It kind of reminds me of Biomutant, but yeah, you're driving around in whatever this thing is. Oh man, look at that. That looks really nice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, dude, it's, I think it's just pretty good looking. Like I said at the top, initially I was like, all right, interested because I have a positive impression of Black Desert Online, the monetization stuff aside. Like as a game, I had a good game experience and I had good memories with Black Desert. Yes, the monetization soured that a bit and eventually I stopped playing. I stopped playing every game eventually and I had some fun with it. I have a generally positive leaning impression of BDO. So when they first revealed Crimson Desert, I was like, yeah, sign me up. I'm interested. I want to learn more. I want to see more. And those early gameplay trailers, they were really rough. The frame rate was really rough. It was looking pretty, yeah, but that was 5 years ago. And now This year, in 2025, the most recent gameplay trailers and straight up raw gameplay that we've seen released over the past couple months, it's looking actually good. So I'm at the point where I'm pretty cautiously optimistic. We also know, I want to add, the game Crimson Desert was originally supposed to be an MMO. Originally it was supposed to be, I believe, like a precursor or sister game to Black Desert with some differences. They eventually obviously scaled that back. It's turned into now what is predominantly a single player game. We do know that they are going to have some forms of multiplayer. I haven't really nailed down. Every time I've heard them talk about multiplayer, it's been incredibly vague. I haven't seen a lot of specifics. I've heard rumors that it might be Dark Souls style and or some like asynchronous multiplayer. I don't know that they're gonna have straight up like 4-player co-op or anything, but we'll have to wait and see until they reveal more details. But yeah, cautiously optimistic is where I would say I am right now. There's a lot about this that I'm really, really liking, and a lot of good, interesting things that we've seen in these recent showcases. So we're not too far away. Game is set to launch on March 19th. It was originally supposed to come out this year. It got pushed back into 2026 a little while ago, and yeah, now it's settled on a March 19th release date, and I'm looking forward to it. Genuinely, if I get the chance to play prior to release, I'll be sure to make some videos talking about it. But for now, my impressions from what I've seen, heard, read, and watched about the game, good. Good. I'm very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. We'll see how it all turns out. That's all for today, though. Thanks for watching. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.